Hello. Thank you very much for coming here to my session. So what we will be talking about today is about adapting to the exponential development of technology. And what I mean of that with this is that every time we see and we're confronted within our enterprises with technologies that are constantly changing, and it is always a really big challenge to adapt to them. And actually that means not only the technical organization that you have to do, but as well the social organization that you need to take care about that. So to start, I will introduce myself. I'm happy as well if you follow up with me and if you contact me if you have questions. I know that my email address look like I don't want you to remember that, but I do want you to remember that. And yeah, I'm consulting director at Think Big Analytics. That's the consulting unit from Teradata. How many of you actually have heard about Teradata? Okay, that's very good. And Think Big Analytics? Okay, I think that we need to work a bit on that. Teradata actually is transforming from going of being a data warehouse provider to being actually an analytics provider and actually bringing this expertise. And we think Big Analytics, we are the consulting unit that we are actually responsible of doing that. Originally, we were a startup founded in the Silicon Valley, and right now we are as well part of this big consulting team and actually working and focusing on bringing a solution to our customers. So going a bit more in my talk, pretty much what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be giving an introduction about what is industrial innovation. We are talking a lot about industrializing analytics, industrializing data science, so a bit more of this historical context. And I would like to talk as well a bit more about what it means to be agile, truly agile, and about what is the meaning of a monolithic architecture and what is service-oriented architecture. So we will start with the industrial innovation. As many of you know, there are many articles as well going around talking about like we are in the fourth industrial revolution. So actually this development that we are seeing right now about the development of mankind has been pretty old. We are always like having fear about like how this may change the society actually. But for example, if you see when we actually realized that bringing mechanization to different processes, we were way more efficient and the way to work actually changed. When there were as well a young entrepreneur named Henry Ford, and he realized actually that with the assembly line, he could be even more effective. Actually, again, it changed the way how people work, and it was even more comfortable. And that's actually where we are right now with automation. I think that really interesting is actually the third industrial revolution would actually come the computing automation and as well the internet. With the internet as well, things started to go even faster. So right now what we're trying to do a lot is try to connect things. So we talk as well about of Internet of Things, so trying to make machines intelligent. And that's a very interesting point because we're going to focus actually in the third and fourth part. And to demonstrate it to you that this is actually really exponential what's going on, that is the third and fourth part, what is going on. So we had like the internet, you know, probably many of you know Mark Andreessen. He saw a really big opportunity of giving a window to the internet, and actually it was for real. So what happened is that actually you could make money out of the internet and technologies, and it's really important for us because the time of e-business is the first time that we really have as well transactional data, and we realize actually that this transactional data that we had as well probably in the 80s, 70s already within retail or something like that, we can do a bit more with that. And it was very important because it appeared a new concept called web analytics. So pretty much you were going direction to behavioral analytics. You started to understand as well what people want, and you started to realize how you can already know a funnel. If a customer is coming to my online shops, he's giving specific steps, and I can already tell if he's ready to buy or not. So you have heard a lot about online marketing, kind of like a new organization. I would say this job didn't exist before social media, so it's developing a lot. And that is the first, I would say, the wave of data analytics. We have as well the social media. That's actually this behavioral analytics developing even more and going more to try to understand what people actually want. And here as well, if we talk about data, we already came to a wave that we were talking about semi-structured data. So we wanted to be faster. And at this point, as is actually when the tech giants like Google, Yahoo started to discover or play around with file systems, distributed computing. And after that, you had as well kind of like Facebook trying to come up with an idea that now we call it Hive. And this technology started to develop in a lot. And right now we have the Internet of Everything. So I always see within our customers that they not only have like a digital strategy, so we want to do something just digital. So right now it's, for example, that I call the legacy business, that is the largest business they have. And with the Internet of Things, they are realizing that they have a lot of cases, actually digital cases to run across actually this large business, offline business as I call it. And actually trying to go farther to that, I don't know how many of you actually are pretty much interested in the topic as well, machine economy. So we are not even starting this properly, yeah, and we're already talking about actually that machines can make money by themselves. So it is actually the concept that you have with blockchain and actually Tangle, who are already kind of disrupting that. And going through that and actually this development that we have from technology, I would like to go a bit more and concentrate a bit more about like what is happening actually in the enterprises. So if we see, for example, why software is becoming really important, I don't know if many of you have heard about like the Amazon effect. Amazon is for me a really interesting example because Amazon is a company who actually started testing in 2001 already the concept of microservices, and they actually changed as well from having this architecture, a monolithic architecture, to start trying with microservices, and as well the research that they did, actually they worked together with the NASA as well about like the first steps in cloud computing, and that was really, really long time ago. So the concept that we are talking is right now you have a really huge advantage, and why is actually this platform really advanced and they can actually use software as actually as an advantage in their business. So that happened actually last year. Last year Amazon bought Whole Foods in the United States, and that happened with the stock market, and that's for me commercial advantage. And if you see actually, I just wrote this until 2016, how actually it's developing this the stock market. You see that actually the tech companies are becoming cross-industry, because you know that you don't even know what Amazon is, if it's actually a retailer or it's a tech company, or what is actually the services that they are doing. They're just becoming kind of like a standard of doing things. And if you see actually the market capitalization that you had here at this company in 2016, if you go right now to your smartphone, the price has more than doubled. Amazon is already probably almost $800 billion market capitalization. So there's a really big advantage about what is software, what it means for the enterprises. And what I would like to talk about this is as well a bit of as well a research, and we see as well with many customers that we have, and we are helping them as well how to architect for the future. So what are the things that you need to think about? So what is a monolith? Actually, many of you guys probably working in an enterprise, you are working on monoliths. And what is happening is that management is saying we are becoming agile. So what is happening is you are hiring a scrum master, and you are saying, okay, we are agile. You know, we're trying to do, but you are not really taking care about the technology that you have behind it. And you are just saying, okay, if it's not happening, now I have 3-4 scrum teams, and somehow we are agile, so we're going there. So it is kind of like from the social side of the company, you really want to change that, but we need as well to communicate and to talk to management that actually the technology stack has actually to fit into this idea. So what happened at the first, when I was talking about like the first transactional systems? I was actually pretty efficient that you had like business users, you had as well developers, and you started to build a monolith system. So you had a people who had kind of like a business need, and you had a group of developers, and they could actually develop an application, and you have a code base. So really easy. You had a pipeline as well. You have a request. You could build, test, and deploy. That actually worked really good, and that's no wrong. That's actually everything is right, and you should start working with that. Startups do that as well all the time. And if you see, for example, many startups that actually have become bigger and bigger and bigger, they started that way, and they were going through this transformation because what is happening is this. You are having guys on the business that they want to have something, but they are talking to different teams probably, and these different teams are going to the same huge code base, and they're trying to understand that. Yeah, they're trying to do things with that. So what is actually happening is that one of them is called kind of like a product owner, but he still just write Jira tickets, and they have to do the whole work. And the problem here is actually if you have people that are actually developing here, you see always that they have many dependencies as well with other teams, and they cannot really deploy, or they cannot really go live with the things that they want to have. So that is why I call as well the era of pseudo-agile. So I think that we right now in enterprises, we are in a time where we are realizing that that's not really what we want to get, what is agile, but I don't know what to do. So I know that it's not working. So what are the next steps? And I want to prove you why this is actually not only could be slow, but actually can be harming your business. This actually could be not anymore an advantage, it could be actually being really bad for you. That is actually what in economics this is called like as a law of diminishing returns. Yeah. It is, for example, to give you an example, you realize that you are not truly agile. The first things that I see that is happening in the enterprise is that I say, okay, we are going to hire more people. And we start hiring more people, and we actually achieve a level where even hiring more people is not going to bring more productivity. Or it could be actually be harming. It actually could be worse, because you can just confuse the people, you can have over-management, and you start to try to work in an infrastructure that actually just cannot handle that. And you start to have different kind of problems with that. For example, the automation fair. That is a typical conversation that I'm actually having with many of our customers here in Germany, and it's about like, what is automation? And automation is actually not only a technical topic. Automation is actually a topic that should be spoken across the enterprise, because always when we are talking to some managers, to some executives, the question is, you cannot automate 100% at once, because many people as well in the organization probably have been doing a job for 20 years and, I don't know, pushing some buttons, and they believe that this change is going to bring it out of business, and that's not actually right, because you need to transform that. And we have been running as well some projects where we actually see as well our responsibility in educating actually every single part of the departments. Right now, technology is not more about marketing, it's not about more, it's not anymore about IT, it's not anymore about like analytics teams. So we are actually going to a time where we want to have teams working together. But how are we going to be doing that? So with the automation of FAIR, that is really a topic that I believe is really interesting. Other thing as well, the huge code base. You're going to get, sorry, you're going to get more bugs density. So your team is going to be all the time just fixing bugs or trying to understand what they have done. And the thing that happens normally is that you have a guy developing, and if you, for example, get a new guy, this new guy, I don't know, it's probably just say, yeah, he's not going to have a good time in the first month trying to understand what the guy 10 years ago did, and the wiki that is kind of like updated, but the guy who is explaining that doesn't understand all of that. So it is kind of lots of intransparency as well in the whole process. As well, something that is really interesting is the coordination. So you cannot be actually agile if you have lots of coordination dependencies and you have just unified teams that are responsible for QA and everything, and actually to say you are not giving the developers the life cycle responsibility of the development, because what is happening if you have a monolithic system, you have the engineers developing the code and they have it done and they say, okay, I send it to QA and I hope that everything is okay, otherwise I will get to know that, and the responsibility is over. So that's what we need to change actually, and that's just one part of the cost, that if you are thinking as well probably as from management perspective, that is something that is costing money. And hiring new people, that actually is going to cost you, and you're going to know, and you can demonstrate that with numbers, yeah, that is actually, you are less productive if you have actually the people you had. So that's as well a big problem with innovation. For example, we have, you know that innovation, if you want to work with innovation, you need to reinvent yourself. You know that there's many technology there. You know that you want to start trying things. But if you have, for example, a system that is very rigid, you are actually building to be proven and stable. You want people to follow the processes, and you want people to do just that thing. So what happens is that when you have people, they are not taking risks. Because if they take risks and they do something, they are going probably to break something of your job or your job or something like that. So they are not trying things. And that's a problem as well within innovation. So you kill diversity actually in your system. So you have this lock-in language. You have this really big application, and you have specific tools how you do things. You notice in the market there's many ways to do that. But you have your way to do, it's proven and stable. And that's where people actually is not really trying to do things. And another big contradiction here is that if I go to different countries, everyone is talking about, like, I want to hire the best people. I want to have more people, and these people need to be the best one that, from the world, you know. I have heard as well some kind of like a job description in Berlin that are pretty crazy, but you want kind of like superhumans, yeah? And the thing is that you take them to your company and you show them your stack. That is actually 10 years ago, is because I didn't want to write 20 or something like that, yeah? Because we are talking a lot in many companies about like Hadoop, and that's already a couple of years old. But you are talking about like 10 years old, and that's a problem, because if you want to have these people who has the new ideas, who are actually investigating a lot, coming from university with new technologies, and they actually are interested to developing that, and you actually are going to give it an onboarding in this whole stuff, you're going to have really big problems trying to keep them. And that's something as well, that you are going to be investing in human resources. You're not going to see what the returns of the investment are. And talking about that, is the concept that I want to talk to you today is, what is the meaning of being truly agile? So what do I need to do? So I would start talking a bit more about people. What is the mindset? Because it is a lot of mindset. If you want to go to a software as a service mindset, you need to change the way how you manage things. And that is really hard because many people have to be controlled, have to keep control. So I don't know if you know a book from a guy named Daniel Pink. Daniel Pink says actually something that is really interesting. So if you're talking as well a bit of the history of management, you know that actually you want to have some kind of regard, which actually works almost all the time. But it changes when you have cognitive tasks. So when you need to be creative, we are actually right now in a time where many topics need to be out of the table. For example, that you are going to be paid fairly, all of the kind of stuff, that is the stuff that we need to actually, it needs to be obvious that it's going to happen. So we need to talk about more why I'm doing what I'm doing. So people normally need these three things to feel they are really doing what they want to do. For example, purpose. Every one of you want to know that I'm doing something that is really matters. So I'm part of something big, and I'm actually a really important part of it. If you're working in these whole companies, enterprises with these monolithic systems, you are putting your code and you don't know why you're doing that. You know that you have some kind of influence, but with a purpose, you really want to know that you have some kind of responsibility as well for a really big thing that you are doing. You have autonomy. So what happened with autonomy in one company? You need to be able, this is part of the big change. You need to give actually people, developers, for example. It's not only developers, that's sorry for that, but you are going to have actually groups of people with different skill sets, and you have to give them end-to-end responsibility of the thing that they are doing. You need to be able to manage the success of the teams, that's for sure, but you need to give end-to-end responsibility. And people want to have that, you know? Development teams, they want to have the autonomy to prioritize a task. They want to have the priority as well to decide which tools they are going to use. And that's something that should be as well part of the team's decision. So that is actually what is autonomy, and you have the mastery. Even if you have a community way to think, and you think, okay, I have this big purpose, and it's aligned with the company, and really feel part of it, and with my team, we are actually being this part, we are helping with this part of the business, you need a mastery. You have as well your own goals. So you want to be probably the best software engineer in your industry. You want to become something. So managing people as well, developing people has become as well a really, really big task, because it's changing a lot and everyone wants to test and learn a lot. So how is actually changing this to your architecture? So many of the talks or conversations that I'm having with many customers or with some other tech people always is the conversation about, we are an A and we want to go to B. So I have like kind of like an end state of the architecture. What I think already this mindset is kind of wrong, because you need to architect and you need to think that you are to continue evolving. You're going to be changing, and you need to architect to be able to change. And that's actually the key message that I think you can start any kind of conversation if you don't talk about an architecture to be like an end state that you are going to get there, because probably you are going to get very disappointed. So what is architecture as a service? There is actually really interesting introduction, if you are interested about this, from Martin Fowler. And he's talking as well about, like, if you want to go to architecture as a service, if you're talking about as a microservices, you cannot just think about it and say, okay, we're going to do it. So there are three prerequisites that you need to follow. So if you want to go to this way, you need to have rapid provisioning. That's actually the story as well of cloud computing. You need to be able to spin up an infrastructure really fast. If you want to do that, but if your IT needs, I don't know, several weeks, you're not going to be able to do that. Doesn't matter actually if you are not on the cloud. If you are trying to do that in the cloud, probably works better, but you can as well start doing it on-prem. Rapid deployment, that's really important. For example, here there is actually tools like Docker. You actually need to be able to automate. You need to be actually, your mindset is you need to automate everything. And if you are not good at automation, probably that's something that you need to get before you start to think about like software as a service. Even if you are not completely automated, you need to start thinking, okay, that this is going to keep you very, very busy if you want to go to this. Monitoring, this is really important. Monitoring, for example, it is if you have some kind of failure or something like that, you in a real case architecture, you will have hundreds or even thousands of services. So you really need to know if something went wrong. So you really need to master as well monitoring. So they are, for example, the three patterns where you need to concentrate if you want to think, okay, I want to become truly agile, and I want to change the way how I see things for this big monolithic and having requirements to start becoming responsibility of a service by myself and have the end-to-end responsibility. The mindset, that is as well really interesting. So what is happening here? You remember the monolith monolithic architecture that you see, that you saw before. So what you need to change at the end of the day is that is actually what is going to get you really agile. Remember that I had before like the business guys here on the IT. In the future, they will become one team with different disciplines and with the whole responsibility from end to end. So what I try to describe here is that the request is not anymore somewhere different. So everyone is responsible, even the development team as well, from the business requirement until deployment. And you have as well, you have the teams defining and selecting their own tech stack. We will talk about tools maturity and how you actually manage this from a point of view of a global architecture, because you need to have some kind of like a rules to do this. But if you see, for example, here as well, really interesting for me, you're going to change the mindset with middle management, and I think that that's the kind of like the greatest challenge here, because people who are actually given kind of like the way to go, they need to give a bit of responsibility, and the tasks are going to change, because this team is going to own the business, but this team is going to be responsible as well to report and know as well how successful is your service. For example, if you are in a company, I don't know, if you are for I don't know, company X responsible from some part of the website, I would say, payment side, and you are developing technology, and you have, for example, your product is software, and you need to know as well how many other teams are using your software. So you need to actually start a conversation with management that you want to measure your team about, for example, how often are your products being used internally. So the mindset here is to change, for example, the full responsibility. These teams needs to be a bit like a really little startup. So you need to have like excellent APIs. You need to have a stable system, and you need to have as well SLAs. And that's, for example, something that you need to do. And you have as well, for example, you need to architect for failure. You will have anytime as well dependencies, and from time to time, it could be that other service that you don't really have influence about, it's going to fail, but your service is going to fail because of that. So you need to develop for that. What are you going to do because when that happens? So what are your alternatives? So what are you going to show to your customers when the service is down? So you need to think a bit more as an entrepreneur. Is this your service? You actually should be able, if it would be theoretically possible, to sell your service. So that is the mindset. We have talked as well a lot about what is infrastructure as code. So I think that the key point of building, for example, infrastructure as code, it is not just because it is exciting tech. I think that if you want to start this conversation as well with management, you need to talk about something that they really care. For example, right now I heard today in the morning a lot about GDPR, about like regulations, about data privacy, about like audit trails. And what is happening is what is more secure. I was talking about, before talking about like writing a wiki 10 years ago and coming other developer and documenting that, and probably it's going to be right, but it's not right. And probably if you go to management and you say, you know, with infrastructure as code, I have in a file, my infrastructure is described. And it's actually what is going to be built. So you have that. You don't have. You still need some documentation, but you have something that you can actually add to your audit trail. So when you are going to be in this situation, and probably that's as well the mindset that we have, because we work with the largest enterprises, and normally they are public companies, so they need to be very transparent about that, and security compliance as well a very big topic. And very as well important is if you have services, it's all about APIs. So if you want to start a service, it is about the APIs. And the APIs you need to manage as well, still centralized. You need to make sure that the semantic is right. You need to make sure that you are giving the right information. So that is pretty much where you need to go. And if we talk about like having teams that are kind of like growing themselves, it is not easy. It is, you are going to get as well different kind of challenges. And you have different principles for that. We call it the business of things, for example. One principle, which means you have different teams in your corporate that are working in different topics. But for example, for one team, if you are I don't know, if you are a retailer, yeah, you have, for example, a company called Danone. Danone for you can mean two things. For me, Danone is a merchant, and Danone is as well a product. It could be, I don't know, a yogurt or something like that. So you need to be coherent as well, how you can actually manage your data and the meaning of the things that you are doing and for your business. You need to know what you have. That's really important. You're going to have teams that are going to be thinking about the technologies, trying new technologies, doing that. So you need to have some kind of rules about like which technologies can be accepted. So you need to challenge your teams. That's as well the change of the role of management. If you want to use this new technology, we're going to have kind of like a committee that is going to evaluate that and to see, okay, why it is the advantage of that, or we're going to start trying new things, but we're going to have some kind of control. Um, you have, as I said, like what I was saying as well, this playbook. So you need to know as well the rules. Sorry, and the rules normally from the that could be, for example, the size of a service. That's as well very important. The tech committee is, as I think, is as well a really interesting topic because we've talked always about like being free and it just cannot be a chaos. For example, you need to be as well, if you are responsible of some part of the development and the business, you need to report as well. And you need to be actually make sure that you are successful. And you need to work together with management to define these KPIs, how you want to measure yourself. So I think that is that's pretty much the task that we do have to develop. As you see, going to the future, trying to develop to new technologies is not just about the tech, it's a lot about people. And I think that the biggest advantage that we have right now is that with big data you can actually do it. Big data is meaning a lot of change in many, I don't know, I need a bit of water. Big data is meaning actually a lot of change. Thank you. Yeah, big data actually means as well a lot of change. And you have as well a lot of opportunities there as well to shape your organization. So what we normally do is we define programs and we define as well how we can change it. For example, right now a really important topic that you can always talk with managers and as well talk about how we can shape your organization a bit more, going through truly agile, is if we talk about like analytic ops. Many teams, for example, are developing data science models, but they are finding it really hard to operationalize that. And operationalizing data science is not just a task for data engineers or data scientists. I've seen as well lots of examples where the strategy of a company was to hire 20, 30 data scientists. And the first time we started to talk, that was probably 2 years ago or something like that. And by now happened nothing. So there is no business value. So that is something that is the opportunity if you go through a program, if you get help. I know that many companies, for example, want to do everything by themselves, what is actually right, and you should do that, you should follow that culture, but you need to get help as well to get to get as well the experience how that may work as well with your organization. If you want to achieve something that is not only technical, that if you have models that are running by themselves, but you still want to change the way how you work, I think that's how we approach these topics. So really big chance as well to change how the how your company is set up. And going as a concept of the architecture, and going to the last topic is, for example, compliance and security. So I think that was really interesting in the last days. And what you need to do, I was talking a lot as well about audition trails, management, that is as well. You need to, it's actually, you are not going to avoid that management is going to give you some guidelines, something you need to do and something you need to take care. Many companies are just public and you need to follow those rules. Data protection is as well really interesting topics, and you need to make sure that all teams are following that. So the communication from management is going to change a bit. Some examples I saw when I was talking to people that I know that, for example, most of the problems that happen when this transformation happens is more between, for example, middle management and the teams, because it is just changing this kind of like task, is kind of giving more control, giving this autonomy. So that is pretty much what I wanted to give you as an introduction. So we are here actually outside as well, and we are prepared, of course, to go in a bit more deeper in these topics. If you want to talk about what is the concept of analytic ops, what is actually the meaning of operationalized analytics, what is the meaning for continuous integration and development for us, what is infrastructure as code, and going as well to these architectures. So don't hesitate to talk to us. I think that was everything for me. And if you are interested to talk to us as well, of course, we are always hiring. I don't know if we have time to have questions here. I'm happy as well to have questions outside. Any questions? Yeah, I think that the most accurate answer to that is because most of the problem is social. It is about as well the structures. So what I would suggest is get help. And as I said, what we do is we work in programs that we aim to change as well how you are organized to understand where is the value of changing in the way that you want to do. I know that, for example, many of these topics need to come from management. I know, for example, people from tech companies that is actually even easier because middle management is aware of that and they really want to go that way. But I think that our experience with a bit more traditional companies is to understand that the change doesn't really mean that someone is going to lose his job or her job. To give you an example, we had as well an engagement where we were trying to automate, for example, with image recognition for this kind of like paper. If you want to have, for example, a credit in Spain, you need to do a lot of paperwork. So what was happening is that when we were doing this, there's lots of people, you have lots of people that actually were reviewing this and making this digital. And if you come to the idea, okay, we're going to automate that, probably you need to be careful how it's said, because they're going to say, okay, but that's my job. So what we were doing right now, and that's actually really important about monitoring. So we were offering as well kind of like educating the people that they are going to get a new tool to work with that, and they don't need to be doing things that actually they shouldn't be doing. So what is happening? We developed like a model that is making almost all recognition, but there's still some other that needs to be reviewed. So they are reviewing that, and currently this team is working in other topics. So I think that it is pretty much more about how you are going to communicate as well with the team. Get help from outside, always help, because normally when you are inside your company, it is of course a bit harder, or it needs to come as well from higher management. Yeah. Other question? So thank you very much.